to start anyway.
We're starting without you.
Anytime
Yeah, I'm on my way.
Anytime a vehicle is driven with too little or too much engine oil or transmission fluid, there's a lot that can go wrong, and everybody knows that, right? This is Drivetrain Test 12. Or basically, the oil can't circulate properly, and engine components depend on that, and so are transmission components. What'll happen if you drive a vehicle, pulling it down the road, just driving it, pulling it down the road, like if you're got it hooked to with a tow rope or something? If you just hook it up to it, like you just go out here and you drop it in neutral and you drag it down the road, how far do you think you'll get before you destroy the transmission?
Not very far. That's why you pull the drive shaft.
Or put it on a dolly so that the drive wheels aren't turning. Why does it do that? Why will it destroy? Why will it destroy the transaxle or the transmission or whatever?
Because everything's still spinning.
And there's no oil being pumped. Now, in some of the old transmissions, eons ago, they had a front pump and a rear pump. And whenever you dragged it, you'd be turning the rear pump. And you could technically pull an automatic transmission car and get it started that way when they had a rear pump, but they don't have it anymore. Okay, so basically you're going to have accelerated damage. That's no-brainer. Everybody knows that. So if you operate with low engine oil levels, a lot of people don't know this, but if you operate with low engine oil levels, like if you're got 4 quarts of oil in a 5-quart crankcase, did you know this? That it will break down in 1,500 miles? If you have a 5-quart crankcase and you run 4 quarts of oil in it, in 1,500 miles, that oil breaks down. Just because you're running 1 quart low, it exponentially. I got that from from Ford Motor Company. We had a training seminar thing that we did on that, and that's what they said in that. So transmission, you know, if it's what do you feel whenever transmission fluid is low? If it's an automatic transmission, how can you tell? Huh?
It shifts hard.
Well, not this, that. What's the first thing you notice? You ever had one with transmission fluid low? I learned this when I was working at a filling station in the 70s. Well, no drive or reverse. Put it in drive, it's in there for a second, you know, because the fluid's low, and when the fluid's low because it's cold and it's, you know, taking up less space, it expands when it gets hot. That's what transmission fluid does. That's why you got a low and a high, you know, for cold and normal operating temperature. Well, what happens is you got a situation here where if you're driving along and you turn on an automatic transmission and it drops into neutral, and then it comes back. That's low fluid.
Low fluid.
And occasionally you'll see one that's got the wrong dadgum dipstick in it. And if you're driving one and you turn and it drops into neutral and comes back, I don't care if it does say it's full. It had a quart of fluid. Because you're going to have more fluid to get a dipstick that's accurate and all that. So, all right, continuing on. We're going to try to do this, you know.
So that's delayed engagement and only reverse and low?
Well, delayed engagement whenever you're dropping it in gear, you know, and you'll be, you know, we're gonna hit on that. So watch that. So basically, if you drive it a long time with insufficient transmission fluid, you're gonna have issues because of that. All right. Okay. So let me get out here with the rest of my notes here. You ever hear one clicking and carrying on? I think, what was that, Melissa, that you somebody was having an engine noise or something on one of these semesters, and you found it low on oil or something.
One of my friends when we went to the beach.
Yeah, it was clickety click, making a racket, and then you pour it in there. So an engine with too much oil can exhibit the same valve train noise that low oil levels produce. Why? Why will too much engine oil make valve train noise? Because it whips the oil up into a foam, and part of the time you're pumping air. Here's something else that I've seen. Too much engine oil in a Ford Ranger one time. You know, the people out there would have this hose that you pull down, and they would say, you know, give me 5 on the pump. Tell Brian Adams to get in here. I think he doesn't know we're doing this. Brian, come in here. But anyway, so here we got.
He went to the beach.
Oh, he went at 11? I thought he went at 11:30.
He said he had to do some revising or something.
Okay, well that's fine. He'll be able to see this on the internet. I didn't realize that. I thought he didn't go until 11:30, but that's okay. Anyway, they got this pump. They got this thing where you've got a hose on and they set it in the parts department. And I don't know if they do that over where you're at, Melissa. And they set it for 5 quarts, and they got a bulk oil, you know, fed through a hose or a hose reel, and you stick it in there and you. Well, occasionally they'll put 5 on the pump, and the other guy, there's 2 guys over there working in the same area, and through hook and crook, the guy pulls the trigger, and they've got 10 on the pump because the first guy hadn't got his yet, and they put 10 quarts of oil in a 5-quart crankcase.
Let's see.
And I seen one on this Ford Ranger I got that was having a vibration. It was like, you'd have thought something was bad wrong with the balancer or something. And the only thing wrong with that thing was it had like 8 or 9 quarts of oil in a 5-quart crankcase. And it was shaking. I drained the oil out and got it down full, normal, and it didn't shake anymore. So we didn't have to do any heavy duty work on that one, right? I mean, I don't know if all of them are going to do that, but I know that one did, and I saw it happen. So I'm not making this up as I go, okay? All right, so, all right, let's hit a question or two. Low levels of transmission oil could cause what?
Delayed engagement.
There's the sway bar links.
Reverse and low.
And that's Brandon. All right, you know what to do with that. All right. Everybody like that question? So reverse and low would be when you put it in gear in the morning when you're getting ready to take off.
That's low.
Is that what you got? That's reverse and low, isn't it? Everybody like that answer?
Yep.
Delayed engagement when it's placed in drive only or no? He's right. Reverse and low. Or reverse and drive rather. Well, reverse and drive, not reverse and low either, because, well, when you put it in drive though, it's going in low, but low is, they're talking about low when you put it in low. So if you put it in drive, it's not going to act normal in drive and not in, and not in low. So it's going to act that way in reverse and low, but it would also act that way in reverse and drive. That's the point. Too much engine oil could cause which of the following conditions?
Connecting rod, requiring wrapping, and tapping or clattering noise from the valve train.
Okay, you won't usually have oil leaks for that reason, but it'd be A and C only on that. That's what I'd say on that. All right, let's get back into this thing here, and let me make sure I've got everything the way I want it. Let me see here. Reverse and drive are the 2 gear ranges that you're concerned about on that. All right. Okay, now then, what else we need to do is we need to be able to distinguish an engine oil leak from a transmission oil leak. How would we do that?
Check the color of the oil.
Yeah. You're basically going to look at that. And what else we do? We're going to wash everything off too, kind of see where it's coming from. So where can it leak from that can fool you when you got an engine oil leak and you think it's a transmission leak, or vice versa?
The bell housing.
Yeah, bell housing area, whenever you got something like that, you're going to have issues. I know also there's if the dipstick O-ring is leaking on a rear-wheel drive transmission, you'll swear the pan's leaking. You just swear it was leaking. Because it runs down and it runs around the pan. You just, the pan's leaking. So you service the transmission and then it comes back on you and all this, But you got to have okay, now if you're going to check transmission fluid, what do? What are the steps you got to go through?
Check the transmission fluid.
Vehicle at normal operating temperature. Positioned on a level surface. Run it at curb idle speed. Curb idle speed meaning, where you're going to have it just idling there. And basically, you got to give the transmission fluid time to disengage from all it's doing and drain down. Parking brake's going to be set. Put it through all the gears. Shift it into neutral. It's just amazingly Chrysler stuff. Chrysler stuff, you need to check it in neutral, right? And remove dipstick and check fluid level. That's how you're going to do that. Did anybody not know any of that stuff?
Why do you have to check Chrysler stuff in neutral?
Huh?
Why do you have to check Chrysler stuff in neutral?
Well, Chrysler stuff, whenever it's in neutral, whenever it's in drive, or whenever it's in park, I've always been confused thinking park and neutral will be about the same thing. But I have known of people checking them in park and the fluid level would not be right.
Yeah, it'd be a lot lower.
If you check it in neutral, it'll be right in a Chrysler. That's not true on everybody. But I will tell you this, if you looked on the dipstick and sometimes you read words, it'll tell you. And look at the dipstick and read the words on the dipstick, it'll say check hot idling in park or whatever. So pay attention to whatever it says on the dipstick. If you got that, or look in your book if you don't know. It seems simple to just check transmission fluid, but what's really frustrating is when you think you did it right and you got it wrong. You ever think you did it right and got it wrong? You ever do that, Bobby? Did you ever think you got it? Okay, you got to verify the complaint. You got to verify related symptoms, symptom analysis, problem isolation, repair of the isolated problem, and then you're going to verify proper operation. Now, one of the things that irritates me when I'm talking to service writers is whenever a service writer tells me when I say they're going to need this, this, and this, and it's going to cost this much money, right? And that's crazy, right? And the service writer says, okay, and that's going to fix it, right?
Brad does that to me.
See, the people that's worked on stuff knows that's a stupid question. I mean, this is what we know we need right now, but we have to verify the repair. Look at any shop manual, it always says verify the repair. When we get through verifying the repair, we'll know it's fixed. Until then, we won't know that. But they want to be able to go back and be the hero. They want to go back and say, if you do this, and I brought that one guy's truck back around after I put some injectors in it on a Power Stroke diesel. And he says, well, I'm not going to have any more trouble with it, huh? And I says, no, you'll never even need another oil change as long as you own the truck. Guarantee you'll never have any more trouble. Oh, man, come on. I said, I don't know if you're having trouble or not. All I know is I fixed what I found wrong this time. You know, they want you to guarantee them that I'll not have any more trouble from now on, you know. And, you know, that's part of what's going on out here is, you know, she's having us put all this work into this car to make sure she doesn't have trouble. Okay, if there's some type of fluid dripping under the vehicle, what do you know? What's the first thing you know?
Number one, you got a leak.
You have a leak, unless it's an air conditioner evaporator, yeah. Before you look for the leak, you want to determine what type of fluid's leaking, whether it's engine oil, transmission fluid, whatever. You know, if it's power steering fluid. Some people, oh, and this is it. What if I see red fluid on the ground? And you're thinking, oh, this is transmission. And then you find out that Yo-Yo's been using transmission fluid as power steering pump.
Dude, that is
No,
so,
some of them actually
so
do
common
require that.
on the BMWs. That is so
GM.
common.
Huh? What?
There are vehicles that require you to use transmission fluid.
So, that's a good point. So if you see red fluid on the ground, it may not be transmission fluid. You got me? All
So
right.
many people do that to their BMWs.
There's a Lexus,
Yeah.
Lexus
It's
is
not
required
supposed to happen.
transmission fluid.
Yeah.
Power steering pump.
And they do that. Well, you know, they just feel like, you know, fluid's fluid.
Yeah.
If sometimes you can identify the fluid as leaking by the color, but that's not always a positive identification. Engine oil is usually amber or black. Automatic transmission is usually red. Just be aware there's other fluids in there. You know, basically, some fluids can become discolored with age, and vehicle mileage makes it hard to determine what the original color was. We did a Cadillac CTS in here, 05 model. Transmission was acting crazy, and it didn't have really all that many miles on it. And that transmission fluid was black and looked like brake fluid. I'm not kidding. It was literally, it had no red color to it whatsoever. And we basically did a full fluid exchange. And I mean, she never came back with any more transmission trouble. But that bothered me. Because if you saw that black fluid on the ground, you would swear it wasn't transmission fluid unless you looked in the transmission and that's what was in there. That's just craziest
You
thing.
put red stuff back in there?
Yeah, put the right fluid back in it. What came from you know, what comes to go in it, you know, a Dexron 6 or whatever it was, it's definitely red. The location can help to narrow down the type of fluid, but not all the time. Sometimes fluid can be leaking somewhere and drip somewhere else. Got it? Okay. You check the viscosity of it. I'm going to take, what do you do if you pull, and we talked about this before, everybody loves it. You pull the brake drum off on one that's got drum brakes, and a lot of brand new trucks have got drum brakes now, and you see a bunch of greasy stuff here all over the brakes. How do you know if it's brake fluid leaking out of a wheel cylinder or if it's an axle seal leaking?
There's something about spraying it with brake clean.
No. What do you do? Taste of it. You'll instantly be able to tell if it's brake fluid or grease by the taste. Just touch it to your tongue. I ain't saying swallow it, you know, wash your tongue and spit it out. Your tongue's washable just like your hands are. But I mean, that's the best thing you can do right away to tell what it is. I mean, you can know in 5 seconds what kind of fluid that is, or you can wash it off and see what you see and all this kind of junk. You know what I'm saying? But you watch at a tire store. These guys that have a lot of experience, when they pop that thing off, they're going to taste it. That's the first thing they're going to do. If I see something on the carpet inside the car, and I want to know if the dadgum heater core is leaking or if that's evaporator drain getting inside the car, because it can be either one on the right side. You taste it. If it tastes like antifreeze, you got a heater core. If it's clear water, it's the evaporator drain. See where I'm going?
Or
Well, you want to put a heater core in there when you didn't have a problem with the heater core? I don't. See? I mean, but see, Melissa's over there about to croak because we're talking about tasting things. What?
Or like on my car, where it was, you remember when we did all that with the doors and all?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't what it was. It was coming through where the cabin air filter is under that cowl thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a drain and it was all clogged up with leaks.
Yeah, well, you troubleshot it and found it, you know? Yep. Okay, going to check the viscosity, you know, other stuff like that. All right, let's go to another question here. When determining what type of fluid is leaking, what's the first step?
Um,
Visual inspection.
What about viscosity? Just look at the viscosity.
Check the
Is it thick or is it thin? Does it feel like water or does it feel like oil? Hypoid gear oil is used in which of the following transaxles?
44 RE.
Huh?
44 RE.
Are you sure?
Anybody know?
I think it's 45 RFE, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm gonna go with 41 TE.
42 LE, you know, believes what they're talking about here. Yeah, always make sure to check that, you know, don't just assume that you know, but 42 LE, let's put that one down there. That's probably going to be,
The last one,
Yeah.
yes.
all right. All right, what if you determine it's engine oil? What do you do then?
Clean it up and trace the leak.
The checkpoints are going to vary according to vehicle and the engine that's exhibiting the leak. Where are the most common leaks? On each, that's what you want to know. Like I was telling you about the 2.2 liter Camry and the one with a timing belt like the late 90s, the oil pump O-ring likes to leak on those darn things, and so does the cam seal. So if it's dripping out from the right end of the engine, that's what that is, you know. Here's something else you need to be really, really careful about. I think I may have touched on this before. It's dynamite important. Somebody has you look all over their Toyota Camry. They want to know, I want to know that everything's going to be okay for me to drive to Atlanta. So you pull the dipstick, you check the oil, you check the belt, you check all this kind of stuff, and they're driving 80 miles an hour in Atlanta, and all of a sudden their differential locks up, and they slide over here, and bang, 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 their car gets all totaled out and everything, and hopefully nobody gets hurt. So what happened? You checked all the fluid levels, except what?
Differential.
The differential has got a separate lubricant, and it doesn't mix with the transmission. You can pull the transmission dipstick, and it'd be full, and the differential will be slam empty. What's dangerous about that is those little places where the half shafts go in can develop a leak, and it drips a little bit and drips a little bit. Next thing you know, you've got no oil at all in your differential, and that thing gets hot and locks up going down the road. There's a couple of guys that were coming over here from Enterprise that were driving a little Toyota Corolla, and they were about halfway around the bypass, and all of a sudden it was like somebody just slammed on the front brakes. They were driving 60 miles an hour beside the road because that differential went dry. We had to get a transaxle put in it. Okay, so be really careful about that. There's a little, on that stand, on the engine on the stand, you can look. There's a little plug you pull out, just like a regular differential. Stick your finger in there, you better feel some oil. And that's the most easily thing to forget that can kill somebody because you didn't check it. You got me? If you're the one that's supposed to be checking it, and they're trusting you to make sure. When a 4.7 liter engine has an oil leak, which of the following leak points should be checked first? Oil fill tube attaching point, rear oil seal area, oil filler cap, or oil filter.
I would go with the oil filter.
What do you think, y'all? You like that? Well, the oil filler cap is a very common one on that one there.
That's good too.
Yeah. All right. Which of the following is not a possible cause of internal oil consumption? A, weak seal between the cylinder heads and block. B, worn rings. C, leaking valve guides. Or D, worn cylinders.
I'm gonna go with
That's going to be an A there.
A.
Weak seal between the cylinder heads and block is not a possible cause of internal oil consumption, at least not on the engines this handout's talking about. What's the sign of an internal transmission leak?
Shifting problems.
Yep, that's exactly right. Shifting problems. Which of those will be the cause of an the sign of an internal transmission leak? Which of the following tests can help isolate an internal transmission leak?
Hydraulic pressure test.
Have you done one of those? You done a pressure test? Hydraulic pressure test? Technician A says aerobic sealers need air to cure properly. Technician B says aerobic sealers cure in the absence of air when squeezed between two surfaces.
That's an anaerobic sealer, isn't it?
Now, what does air mean? What does aerobic mean? Aerobic.
Air.
What does anaerobic mean?
Means no air.
Yeah, so if it's anaerobic sealers, have you ever seen an anaerobic sealer? What does it look like? What would you liken it to? If I squirted some in my hand, what would I be looking at there? What would it look like?
Black goo.
No. Looks like jelly. Looks like red jelly. And when you put it between a couple of surfaces that are machined, it squishes out to where it's like there's almost nothing there, but it fills in the microscopic grooves, and it turns into a sort of a rubbery material. Sometimes it turns into hard stuff, but that's an anaerobic sealer. Let's see. But anyway, number 9 is A, and number 10. Which of the following tools is used for removing the old gasket material from aluminum surfaces,
Plastic or wood.
wood scraper. How many of you guys have never used anything except plastic or wood on aluminum? I don't have any liars in here, do I? Everybody in here has picked up a metal scraper and scraped aluminum with it.
Integrity check.
Yeah, I liked it. All right, so that finishes that one up.